Ooh, let's talk about that Blade rumor. The Lord of the Rings trilogy returns to the theaters, plus it's gonna be May. All that and more on this week's Multiverse News. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name is Matthew Carroll. It's good to be here with you. And on the panel with me today, we have Haley Hobbs. What's up, Haley Hobbs?
What is up? It's Tuesday/Wednesday, and we're bringing the news.
Bringing the news, bringing the funk. And Jay Sisson, what has happened, bud?
Man, not too much. Just thinking about how I'm going to try to watch all these extended edition Lord of the Rings in theaters and block out 15 hours of time.
Yeah,
see how that goes.
You gotta. And then Jay Scotty St. Clair.
Can you guys smell that? Apparently The Rock is cooking something.
I hate it. I love it.
It's not so good smelling today, apparently.
Not so good.
Oh yeah, not so good.
I don't know if I call it cooking.
Really smell like poop.
So we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But first, we'll read our 5-star Apple podcast review from Cray17 or Kray17, one of those two. It says, as a frequent listener of each of the panel's individual podcasts, this is the equivalent of an Avengers Assemble in podcast form. I love the individuality and discussion of each panel point of view. Analytical dives and quick quips makes each episode fun and interesting. Great chemistry and topics always make for a great time during my commute. Keep up the good work and happy anniversary. Stay classy, Multiverse.
Woohoo.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
We appreciate
I love the quote of the tagline at the end. Mm-hmm. That's always fun.
Shows you're a real one.
That's right. That's right. Well, my friends, you want to dive into some stories for this week?
Oh yeah.
Ready to make a splash.
Analytical dive.
Let's do an analytical dive. No, none of these emotional dives. Let's analyze this. It's a light news week, so we're entertaining a bit of unsubstantiated rumor coming from reputable insider Daniel Richtman, who suggested that Wesley Snipes could reprise his role as Blade at some point in the MCU's Multiverse saga. While this report doesn't seem to have the traction or backing that others have, what does it say to us about the state of Mahershala Ali's long-gestating MCU flick that so many fans seem eager to revisit a previous incarnation of Marvel's favorite daywalker before his has even seen the light of day?
So I'll preface my comments by saying, again, this is an unsubstantiated rumor, and I'm kind of a little bit on the fence about discussing this one at all, but I'm the one to blame. I'm the one that brought this to the table and put it in the outline here, but I'm still a little on the fence for whatever reason, because it doesn't really seem like it's going to end up being true, but if it does end up being true and, Wesley Snipes does make an appearance, I would be kind of upset that was ruined for me. But that being said, I suspect that I am not nearly as endeared to Wesley Snipes' version of Blade as probably a lot of fans are. I have a healthy respect and appreciation for those films and the influence and impact that they had on the superhero genre alongside those early 2000 X-Men films. But I just don't think that they really have like the staying power. So again, like considering the Mahershala Ali casting that we got all the way back in 2019, and all we've gotten so far within the MCU is a voice cameo at the end of the Eternals there. Yeah, this kind of rubs me the wrong way. And if I was Mahershala Ali, I'd be pretty upset that this is even like, making as much of a splash and buzz as it is. And I hate to say it, but it really does not help my hopes for this film to ever see the light of day. It's been, script rewrite after script rewrite, delay after delay. The thing was finally due to interactive production last summer, and that's when we got hit by the strikes. And all we've heard since then is more delays. So I'd really like to see that one, but as it seems less and less likely that we will, I'd be okay with returning to a previous version of the character.
I have a little bit different take. If the suggestion is that Wesley Snipes could be his Blade in the multiverse, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
It's timely because Brian and I just did another one of our Secret Wars primers on source pages. We just dropped it tonight because we have like this little break in content this week. And what you learn in those comics is that there's just multiple versions of each character. And so if the suggestion is just that he might be a cameo, I think that's great. I think that would give people a lot of satisfaction just to see him return for a little blip of a moment. No pun intended. And I think that's fine. I think it's a bigger issue, this Blade movie with Mahershala Ali. In general, I think it has a lot of potential. He's such a great actor, but God, the years that this movie has on it at this point, it's really kind of disturbing. And it's just been in this development and production hell for so long. I don't know what they're doing. We have no like real compass on what direction this movie is going. They keep changing this way and that way. So that's more of a concern to me.
Yeah, I always kind of like the idea of if we want to have some type of a fan favorite iteration of a character, especially one that's been out of commission for so long. I mean, that first Blade film came out in 1998, so it's been a really long time and predates a lot of these Marvel projects by so long. To me, it always feels like if we want to get the person involved and if the person wants to be involved, like what's stopping us from bringing them in some type of other role, like some kind of small role in a new Blade film or something like that kind of tips the cap to the old guard and kind of lets them get involved. But I always question, like, what is the point of the cameo? You know, like, are we just bringing someone in for fan service? Because I'm not super down with that. I don't feel like it does much to really build up the story that we're trying to tell. In No Way Home, we used the characters to tell the story, right? Like Toby and Andrew showed up, but they were integral to the story. Like they needed to be there. It wasn't just there to be like, look at these guys, they're in the suits that you remember and you can come buy the ticket for that reason or whatever. So I'm always just kind of skeptical when I hear this stuff because I just want to know what the point is, right? Like if you're just bringing somebody in for a cameo, it just doesn't. I don't think people are as excited about that as maybe people, like the wider group of people, think that they are sometimes. Like I think like people maybe aren't like clamoring for that, but I think if you can make it work as part of the narrative, then that's fine. So I don't know. It's tricky. I think it's a little trickier than just kind of being like, you guys like Wesley Snipes, right? And just kind of like putting him in or whatever. So I don't know. But like you said, Haley, that's what I was thinking about too. Like this, I'm just more interested on where are we going with Blade now. I mean, this movie has constantly been of a shifting rumor mill of casting, and then these people aren't cast, and now they are, and the budget was this, but now it's that, and the timetable's here, but now it's there. And so for me, I'm much more interested in tracking that and seeing where we're going with Mahershala Ali's Blade, which we may never get to see. Hopefully we do, but it's just, there's a lot of moving parts that have yet to be determined, I think.
I feel similar to all the things you guys have expressed, and I just think that it's cheap fuel to just throw in a Blade cameo. Now, if you're going to give me a Blade story where it's, I love those stories of like where they bring back, Rocky or Rambo or any other Sylvester Stallone character and relive like the old times and get one more outing 20 years later. I love those kinds of movies. That's cool, but bringing him back for a cameo would be less meaningful, especially if you don't have a Blade to compare him to. It'd be cool, like, if they had made this Blade movie and Mahershala Ali's Blade existed and we knew that Blade, and then we got the connection, sort of the nod to like, look, it's the two Blades back to back fighting in the multiverse. Like, that could be cool. But the fact that we don't have a Blade to bring that connection feels a little bit like a distraction from telling a new story and bringing in new parts of the universe and just like sort of relying and using up our nostalgia instead of giving us, meaty story.
I think a nice route for the Blade project at this point would be similar to Werewolf by Night. Like if they're going to do this Marvel Monsterverse kind of thing, make them all similar. So make it one of those special presentations that only goes on Disney Plus. And I don't know, like I think because it's just been through such a difficult, challenging production, something is going to happen with it. I would hate for it to disappear completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like that approach of like harkening back to the special presentations, because I've been on record before that kind of seems like Marvel kind of starting something and not really knowing where they want to go with it, kind of like they did with, one shots and stuff like that as well. But I think there could be a real opportunity to maybe like spin off into like a Midnight Suns film, have Doctor Strange kind of be the through line in the films, and then we have Moon Knight and, Werewolf by Night, and maybe Blade could make his debut in a similar fashion. But I also can't help but think, how big of an impact do you think like Hugh Jackman being cast in, Deadpool and Wolverine is like fueling this story? Because I haven't been as vocal about it. I'm pretty excited for Deadpool and Wolverine as we gear up towards it, and I've seen more and more about it. But initially I was kind of like, I don't really want to revisit Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. I'd rather get our new Wolverine like right here, right now, and move forward with the franchise, because again, Logan was such a swan song for that character, and we've spent so much time with Hugh Jackman's version of the character.
Yeah. I'm excited to get the Hugh Jackman character back for this specific movie. Like, if it were anything else, if it were just like, let's do a fourth Wolverine movie or whatever, a fifth Wolverine movie, it would be like, oh, why? Like that the character is gone. Like Logan was perfect for that. But the fact that they're just bringing him back for this sort of multiverse hopping, joke, and sort of like tipping the hat to like all the stuff that came before, and like self-referential, it's Deadpool. Yeah. Like, I think seeing those two characters together is something that's sad that it never happened before now.
Sure.
And the fact that it's actually happening is great. And it's sort of this like puts a wonderful cap on the character of Deadpool, played by Ryan Reynolds, who started in that first Wolverine movie or whatever, Origins, and then like was treated so terribly, and now that character, so many years later, that actor has resurrected that character, made it, a perfect fit for this universe, and then is getting to bring back the Wolverine, and like, I don't know, I think it's kind of great for this movie, but I don't really want him to come back as like a regular mainstay or anything. But I do think that, people are, it's the multiverse saga. These rumors are going to happen. Maybe some of them are true. I would, as much as I just said all that stuff, I don't really care about Blade showing up. Blade showing up in the Wolverine Deadpool movie, that sounds great. Like the same thing. Like if it's the right tone, and it's a movie that's all about those sorts of cameos, which we've seen, if you've seen like the breakdowns of the trailer and stuff that people make online, like now we've seen like every one of those people standing around Ant-Man's head or whatever in the trailer are all identified now, and they're like different characters from different Marvel universes, and it's like it's great, it's cool. So if he was in there somewhere, or like somebody they had to fight at some point, it would be metal as hell seeing Deadpool and Wolverine and Blade fight each other. I want it, but like in this kind of movie, I don't really want it to be like a ongoing thing, I guess.
Are there people who break down trailers on the internet?
I don't know who those people would be.
Crazy. I think last week I did say about the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, it is the only one that can do exactly what it's doing because of the nature of Deadpool. And so that's my take to answer your question, Scotty. I think this is definitely Hugh Jackman's last outing.
I also don't need like every new version of a character to meet the old versions of the character. Like I just don't need that in any way, shape, or form. Like I'm thinking about that ridiculous scene at the end of The Flash where it was like
I was thinking the same thing.
Is like the perfect example of like how stupid cameos can be, because they were useless. Like they provided nothing for you. They were just there as bait, and it was frustrating, and
there's like Leonardo DiCaprio bait or whatever.
Yeah, just cheapen the experience of the whole thing. So, it's tricky. It's I don't want studios to think that cameos are just like a layup for getting people to come see their movie, because they can backfire. It's not always just a home run. It's got to mean something.
Yeah, and even with that movie, they tried to make it mean something by bringing back Keaton and giving him a full role in the movie, but like it didn't. I just don't think it resonated like it should have, and so it's like not. I can't believe we got another Michael Keaton Batman movie, and that's like not one of my favorite things ever. Because like I said, I love this sort of thing when you bring back a character like that to get one more ride or whatever, and it's a real bummer that movie doesn't make me feel that way.
I do want to put a cap on this one by just reaffirming I'm with you all. I do think Deadpool and Wolverine is the unique scenario where you can bring Hugh Jackman back. So like I said, as I've seen more, I am more on board and am excited for it. But I just wanted to, put that out there.
Yeah.
Cool.
That sound you hear is people like erasing their 1-star reviews. They're like,
Okay, you dodged this bullet.
all right, I'll get you next time.
Next time, Gadget. So you just brought something back from
Yeah.
Sleeper agent.
All right. Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy is making its way back to the big screen this summer as Warner Brothers and Fathom Events re-releases the films in theaters, beginning with The Fellowship of the Ring on June 8th, then The Two Towers on June 9th, followed by Return of the King on June 10th. The animated film The War of Rohirrim also hits theaters in December, and Amazon is expected to air the second season of Rings of Power sometime in the fall or winter. The past, present, and future of Middle-earth on full display. Are we feeling precious?
Yeah, I'm excited for this year ahead of Lord of the Rings. And we've talked, one of the earliest rumors that we reported, and it wasn't really even a rumor, it was being talked about in the trades on this show last year, was that the Lord of the Rings was looking to refresh. It was looking to kind of take almost like the cinematic universe route, have series, have movies, and try to build that universe again. And we talked then, and I would assume we feel the same now, that we were apprehensive about that because we love the Lord of the Rings trilogy and it still holds up and it's still great. And the idea of trying to put the universe spin on it and do the spin-off shows maybe doesn't necessarily scratch the itch that the trilogy had. So for the trilogy to be re-released in theaters, I think makes a ton of sense for where we are right now. The movie season is pretty light right now. June is going to be relatively light as well. We're talking extended editions as well. We're not talking theatrical cuts. So, I mean, the Return of the King extended edition, I mean, that thing's knocking on the door of 4 hours. And so you're really...
If you go to an AMC, you're going to be there for 5 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're only really asking your hardcore fans to come out in the first place. And I think there is a market for this. Spider-Man 2 just re-released in theaters and made nearly $1 million in a weekend. I mean, people want to go see nostalgic movies that they remember fondly. And the idea of a Lord of the Rings marathon in a theater, I think, is really enticing, especially if people are getting into this and they missed the opportunity to see these in theaters back in the day. It might be a cool experience to be able to go back and do that. As far as the rest of Middle-earth goes, again, I think we're kind of all over the map. We've got the prequel series, The Rings of Power, which was good or bad depending on who you talk to. It's very polarizing in terms of how it was received, but we do know a second season has been filmed and that it's coming at some point. The War of the Rohirrim has been pushed back a couple different times. It was sort of a sacrificial lamb of the writers and the actors strike back in the day. It should have already come out, but it had to be pushed back. So I think all in all, like putting that all together, there's still a lot of interest in Lord of the Rings. There's still a lot of interest in Tolkien. And for me, I'm hoping I get to find some time to go to the theater because this is really exciting. And I think if you're a Tolkien fan, like the idea of getting to re-experience these movies in the theaters, which, I mean, I remember all 3 experiences seeing these movies for the first time. Like I remember seeing each of the 3 for the first time. And it was really transformative for me. It was one of the first things that I got into that was kind of like an extended universe type thing and realizing, there's books and there's lore and there's all of that and kind of cracked that world open for me. So I'm excited over here. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I love all these re-releases. This is kind of that time frame because a lot of the stuff is hitting its quarter century anniversary. We've got The Phantom Menace literally coming back to theaters this week. Definitely going to that. We've got all the Spider-Man films being re-released. We've got The Mummy being re-released for its 25th anniversary. Like, it's really something that theaters are capitalizing on. And we are the prime audience for this stuff because it's like you said, I want to go relive my experience of seeing this in the theaters for the first time and seeing it on the big screen again. And I'm all for it because if it's getting people out to the theaters, then I think that's primo.
I'll start by acknowledging a little bit of hypocrisy on my part. So in the entertainment sphere, I'm a fan of movies, TV shows, and video games. And in the video game culture, there's been this trend where they like to remaster and re-release video games, and I am vehemently against that. I'm like, no, I'm not supporting you with my wallet in any way, shape, or form. Create new games. I already played that game. I don't need to play it again. But then on the movie side of things, kind of like everyone's mentioned here, I love the opportunity to get to revisit some of these classics, and in some cases, movies that I never got the chance to see on the big screen. Like I got to see Jurassic Park for the first time when it did its 30th anniversary release. Never got to see it on big screen. Arguably my favorite movie of all time. Finally got to see it on the big screen. And then, the studio Ghibli, they have their Ghibli Fest that they've been doing for the past few summers, and I've gotten to catch a number of those on the big screen for the first time. So I really love this. And Jay, I'm glad you brought up the Spider-Man movies that are being re-released. It's like Spider Mondays. I think that's a pretty novel and cool concept, but unfortunately I have not made it out to visit any of these. But it was, pretty amazing, no pun intended, that Spider-Man 2 was able to open at the number 2 spot at the box office that week. So
wow.
As amazing as that is, it's also a little bit concerning, because I know we're getting to that point where it's like I'm looking ahead at the summer slate, and I'm actually like starting to make my top 10 list of prediction for the summer movies and whatnot. And there's not as much this year as there was last year. I think we are feeling the effects of the strike. So, whatever the theater industry can do, I think, coming out of CinemaCon, that's probably what's spurring a lot of these ideas. And ultimately, in terms of, the rest of the Lord of the Rings verse, I probably am most excited for the animated film, The War of the Rohirrim, because, The Two Towers is my particular favorite, and the Battle of Helm's Deep, they allude to a lot of that history with the Rohirrim, so I'll be excited to get to see that brought to life on the big screen.
During his new profile with Vanity Fair, Chris Hemsworth reflected on his career and his work on Thor: Love and Thunder. Specifically, the actor described his performance as too silly and opined that he had become a parody of himself. Hemsworth said he feels he owes fans another Thor film to make up for Love and Thunder's failings, and described his upcoming role in Furiosa as something starkly contrasting his most popular roles. Are we in store for more Thor, and do we want to be?
The obvious answer is yes. Chris Hemsworth was made to play Thor. So I want him as Thor for as long and as much as he wants to do it. One of the sad quotes in this article is that he felt at times like he was replaceable in the MCU as Thor. And I'm like, Christopher, no, that's inaccurate. So, that's kind of a weird thing that it seems like I think I have very mixed feelings about this, because I think that Chris Hemsworth has always struggled a little bit with who the character of Thor is in the MCU. We've had him say that he's just the Shakespeare guy, and then Taika came along and he got to be the funny guy and he loved that, and then he swung too far the other way and he didn't like that. And it's kind of like, I don't know if it's the creative direction of the films that made him feel so trapped in these certain archetypes, or if it was just kind of him, going along with the Marvel machine, or a combination of both of those things. But when you watch him as Thor in all of his movies, he's just really perfect in that role. And he does such a good job in each of the different phases of Thor that he plays. And if you read Thor comics, plug for Ryan Doe's and Across the Bifrost, where I've learned a lot about Thor. Thor is a multifaceted character. And so to me, while he's struggled with this character in the MCU, I think he's actually done a really good job of playing the different kinds of personality that Thor does have. He is intelligent. He is the brawn. He is the Norse god. He's the lightning bringer. He's all of these things. And I hope that if he has a fifth movie in him, and it sounds like he does, I hope it's exactly what he wants it to be, because I don't want him to walk away from several decades of the MCU and continuing to look back with regret, which it seems like is kind of what he's always doing. So don't go, Chris. We love you. Continue to be Thor. I heart you. Keep working out.
I see what he's saying. Like the quote that you were mentioning, Haley, that he says he feels replaceable. He was talking about how he would read the script and be like, man, this character is getting really cool development, and that character's got some really impactful lines. And then he would say I would like kind of look at myself and be like, well, I'm just beard, hair, and muscles, and that's it. Like, it's not, there's not really any depth here. And I think maybe the improv, we've talked a lot about how there was probably a lot of improv in Love and Thunder. There was a lot of on-set kind of, let's do this thing instead of that thing. And a lot of that, to me, probably came out of that feeling. Like, that makes sense to me. You can connect those two things of kind of feeling like, all right, I don't feel like this character's getting enough development. Maybe I'm just something to look at, and that's all. And then we need to swing super far the other way. And I think when you watch Love and Thunder, I think that does show up in the final product. Like, it's very clearly a Taika Waititi at his like most extreme, maybe surrounded by too many people afraid to tell him no type environment, because a lot of the writing in that movie is all over the place, and you can feel that huge chunks of it were cut, and you can feel a lot of the backstory of certain characters, like Christian Bale's character, like these things are cut down, and you can feel that, and it's like weirdly stitched together in places. So to me, like, when I'm looking at this, I think some people come for Chris Hemsworth when they see this. They're like, well, it paid you millions of dollars, so whatever. But at the same time, like, you have to remember, like, these actors, like, they get caught into these roles. They stay in these roles for a long time. They care about them. They want to see them come out a certain way. And then when they look back, it's like they also don't want to get typecast. They don't want to get pigeonholed into a thing. And I think, like, if Chris Hemsworth can kind of get out there and do some projects he wants to do, and he can kind of stretch his limbs a little bit, like do some creative stuff that he wants to do, I think like there's a lot of room here for him to be able to revisit this property and revisit this character and really own it, and kind of have maybe some more creative control than he's had in the past, and do a movie that he wants to do. Because I think he does love the character, but I think he's being reflective a little bit here of a movie that maybe he had a vision, and now he can look back and be self-reflective about it and say, you know, I didn't meet the vision, but here's why I think I didn't. And I think that's refreshing, to be honest. Like, I think like an actor having that sort of foresight and being able to say, like, I think here's where we went wrong, and here's kind of like what we could do if I ever did this again. Like, to me, like that's an honesty that I welcome and I appreciate. So all in all, I don't think this Chris Hemsworth quote deserves criticism. I think it just kind of deserves some reflection a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. It deserves praise for him, first of all, caring about the character. I feel like, you know, I think most of the key members of the sort of Avengers team do, because they realize how big it was for them, and they care about this role they had. But some don't. Some people in the MCU are like, yeah, it's a movie. Like, why? And it's something I've been dealing with my whole life with Star Trek. Like, because people get really into Star Trek and they go to ask the actors stuff, and they go, "It's just a movie, kid." You know, like, it's like, no, but we care about these characters. Like, tell me what your character would think of this. You know, it's like there's always that line, and I think it's really cool that he cares, and it's also really cool for him to be in any way negatively reflect on work he's done and be bold enough to say, like, yeah, I kind of walked over the line to where I should have been. I don't hate Love and Thunder. I don't even think that his silliness is why that movie doesn't work. I think it's much more to do for me, like the stitched together nature and the stuff that seems like it was left out of the final product that clearly was there at some point. Like, they're just chunks that just feel like they're missing. I think it's got that Taika Waititi problem of like trying to swing in tone, and I don't think he can handle that as well as James Gunn can. Basically, I think the Taika Waititi I feel like is a sillier James Gunn who can't like nail down that tone where he can walk the line between like really serious and trying to tackle the cancer and stuff in Love and Thunder. It's just like there's some really hard moments, but it's like so stitched with silliness that it's hard to have those moments, you know.
That hospital scene with Thor and Jane is pretty killer. I mean, it's really well done. There just wasn't quite enough of that probably in the movie. Is the
Agreed.
Biggest, But I also really like Love and Thunder. What I feel bad for is that he feels like he has to shoulder the burden of the criticism this movie got. It's like, it wasn't just you, Chris. In fact, I would argue it largely wasn't him.
See, you say you feel bad, but then I go back to what Jay said, and that word refreshing. Like, you took the word right out of my mouth. That's my take on this. We've seen so many of his co-stars when there's been this movie that's come out that has not been, you know, super well received. They're quick to throw other people under the bus, but the fact that he is so willing to like take the burden on, and I think it's I think we all read these words and it's like, it wasn't just you. Like, I think even the article said he's being too hard on himself. Like, I think we all know the state of that production there. But I guess I'll kind of get this out of the way.
The God of Thunder.
Yeah, I don't hate Love and Thunder either. I don't hate a single MCU entry, but I did do my comprehensive ranking of all the movies recently after the Marvels came out, and Love and Thunder is at the bottom of the list for me. I think it has some great moments, and I'll put it on right now and watch it and enjoy it for the most part, but I do think it's lacking, but I don't levy any of the criticisms towards Chris Hemsworth. I do levy them towards the direction and the humor and the screenplay, but I do want to bring it back to the love and care that we've all brought up that Chris
Hemsworth.
Crimsworth sounds like a British butler's name. Oh, calm down, Crimsworth.
But this love and care that he has for the character, it is worth mentioning that he is one of the few that every time the character showed up on What If, he has voiced the character. So he clearly wants to show up for this character.
Cool.
So
that's really cool.
Yeah. I like Chris Hemsworth. I'm stuck on Hemsworth.
It's a thing now. It's a thing now.
Oh, yeah. Good old Hemsworth.
I do like him as a person. I like a lot of his performances. I have not liked all of his performances. Mission Impossible, not Mission Impossible, Men in Black International comes to mind, Black Hat. There have been a few in there, but I do think he's a guy that I will always root for, and if he wants to come back as Thor, I think he is one of those characters that even with people's misgivings about some of the outings, maybe Dark World as well as Love and Thunder, I think people would come back to root for him.
Put the MCU on his back, though. Jay gets that reference.
Oh, absolutely. With a broken leg.
All right. Well, lastly, here in our featured stories tonight, we've got revealed during an exclusive expose from The Wrap. Dwayne Johnson's latest film project, Red One, has faced significant challenges, including production delays and budget overruns, with costs ballooning to over $250 million due to various issues. Primarily cited is Johnson's chronic lateness and lack of professionalism on set. Despite Amazon MGM denying on-set issues, Johnson's history of lateness and conflicts with co-stars have been well documented, raising questions about his work ethic. Do we take any stock in the besmirching of The Rock's reputation as Hollywood's hardest worker?
Yeah, I'm going to preface this by saying that this is hard for me because I do have like a bias for Dwayne Johnson. Like, I just like Dwayne Johnson, and I kind of always have. And I was saying off air before we started that, I follow the guy on Instagram, and sometimes, he'll go live and he'll start talking or he'll post a video or whatever. And I'm just like, he's just a dude just like me. Like, like he's...
How far back does this go, Jay?
We're nothing alike, obviously. He's got a gajillion dollars or whatever, but it's just like he's a relatable person, and so it's hard. Like, the thing when I saw that,
they're basically twins. Otherwise,
that's literally the only difference.
Yeah, okay? That's the only difference.
It's just the bank account.
Finances.
Yeah, it's just the bank account,
and that's all from the tequila.
Yeah, he doesn't know anything else.
But like I've like weirdly, I don't know, like when I read this article, like my first gut reaction was to be like, no way, he's the hardest worker in the room. He says it himself, and stuff like that.
That's how you know when someone's the hardest worker, is when they say it themselves.
Right. But taking that out of it and just trying to be subjective, this movie coincides with a lot of major career moves for Dwayne Johnson. He has not only just in the entertainment sphere, like you have Black Adam and all that, and that he's been like super resurgent in wrestling right now. Like, so all of that is happening and people know him for that. But like, besides that, he's got a tequila, he's got an energy drink. He bought the XFL, like a sort of a developmental, almost like basically developmental league for the NFL. And then that merged with the AFL to create this new league that he's essentially in charge of. And so you've got so many things happening, and I remember hearing about this movie a long time ago. Chris Evans stars opposite him, and it's supposed to be this like action thriller type thing.
And Christmas caper.
Yeah, and it's like you're looking at it, and it does sort of line up a little bit with where he's been in his career. And we know that Black Adam had the nightmare of a press tour that it had. It coincided with the sort of strong arming of bringing back Henry Cavill in a post-credit scene, and then him getting axed and people getting pulled into the middle, which shouldn't have been pulled into the middle, like James Gunn and Warner Brothers, which, James Gunn had nothing to do with that, and he's all of a sudden having to answer questions about Henry Cavill, and Dwayne Johnson's coming out and saying, well, James Gunn won't let me be Black Adam anymore, and it got messy because The Rock has a gravitas and a personality and a take over the room type thing, and when he wants something, he pushes for it, and maybe he pushes too hard, right? And we talked about that with Cavill, is like that cameo was about Dwayne Johnson being Black Adam and thinking, if I'm going to fight somebody, it's got to be the biggest person in the room, and that's Superman, and not really thinking about the fallout of what that could mean for someone like, say, Henry Cavill. And we've talked before, like, Dwayne Johnson is one of a few people in Hollywood that have contracts where he can't lose fights. Like, he literally can't be in a movie and lose a fight or die in a fight. Like, it's just, and these types of things, it adds up to maybe, again, so as somebody who overall likes The Rock, like maybe bringing somebody who was this WWE megastar who sort of was like in that world of Vince McMahon and like that type of the strong arm type thing, and then to put that person in the entertainment industry in terms of film, maybe it won't always work out, especially when they're starring opposite somebody like a Chris Evans or something like that, and they've got major career moves going on. So I don't know. There's a lot here. The article has a lot to digest, but I will say that $250 million is an unacceptable budget for a movie, a Christmas action movie, by the way. Will inevitably lose money on such a large project. But there's a lot here to sort through.
So, Jay, would you say that last story put you between a rock and a hard place?
You just been sitting on it the whole time.
Yeah.
He's like,
I wanted to interrupt you, but I was like, he's cooking. He's much like The Rock. He's cooking right now, so I let you cook. I'll just kind of say, like, I like The Rock in certain roles, but he's never gotten my butt in a seat. There are plenty of Rock solo outings out there that I have not seen. I think he's serviceable when you put him in the right kind of role. I was never really into wrestling as a kid. I remember when I was in the theater when The Mummy Returns came out, and you had his awfully CGI rendered body. Like, that's not going anywhere anytime soon. But I did read through this whole expose, and I'll kind of say, like, I believe that, like, The Rock is not this terrible person or anything like that, but reading these anecdotes from people, it did remind me of a lot of my own personal experiences, having interacted with CEOs and executive directors and what have you. And, megalomania is real. Like, when someone is constantly told how important they are and touted and given all this clout, it goes to their head eventually. And, maybe he's earned that. He is the one that, for a lot of these productions, he is the appeal. He is the one putting butts in seats for a lot of people. But when your behavior starts to impact the day-to-day workers, like we have like the Yahtzee strike as a possibility, and like people are talking about him peeing in bottles as a way to save time and stuff like that. If you got to go to those routes, like I you do you. I respect your process. If you want to reach your maximum potential and do what you got to do to make the most of your 24-hour day, that's fine. But when it starts to impact other people, especially like I don't want to say little people, but people that aren't on the same level as you financially or professionally, that's where it rubs me the wrong way. And I'm not going to write The Rock off entirely, but I will kind of take this in mind and take this in stride, whether or not I choose to support his outings in the future.
When I read things like this, Hollywood, regular life, whatever, people who, if you have an inflated view of yourself, okay, but I don't believe in like complete lack of self-awareness. I believe people know when they're being the way they are, and I think he must be doing this because he doesn't care. And then you just are extending a lack of respect to the people that you're employing and the people that you're supposed to be working with. And I'm not down for that kind of thing. So I, like you guys, I don't think I'm going to like write him off. I'm not surprised, I guess, by this is kind of my intake. I don't have a lot else to say that's different from what you guys said.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I was just thinking about wrestlers turned actors, really, and like we talked about a few weeks ago. We talked about John Cena, and you, Jay Scotty, mentioned Vacation Friends. I went and watched it. I loved the movie, and it was great. Well, that one, and there was some other one, that Stanicki movie or whatever.
Oh, Ricky Stanicki. I actually liked Ricky Stanicki as well.
I liked it a lot. Like, it's really funny, and I feel like it's all in. John Cena is like killing it, and what I like that is different from The Rock, comparing those two, is The Rock has to be himself in all these roles. He is The Rock in whatever he's in, and that goes all the way back his entire catalog, I feel like, except for maybe Pain and Gain. Like, he's a little different in that. Like, that was before he attained the level of stardom he is now, and now he just sort of dictates, I am this guy. I don't lose fights. I'm a superhero. Like, he just has been that for a while now. But one thing I really like about John Cena, he's really the opposite. He plays weird, like kind of cool. Like, he's always going to be like the big beefcake looking guy, but he is all over the place. And then this week I watched the movie Sisters with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. I don't know if you guys remember that.
That's a throwback.
Years ago, he plays the drug dealer in that movie. John Cena does, and it's just a totally different character. He's like a real he's way bigger back then too. Anyway, I've just been like watching a bunch of John Cena movies, and like I just like what he's doing so much more than I like what The Rock is doing. I like what he's cooking, I guess what I'm trying to say. And like I wish The Rock would let himself be not The Rock in a movie, because I don't think he's a bad actor. I just think he doesn't stretch himself at all, and I think the opposite is true of John Cena. And I'm kind of I'm feeling very partial to John Cena these days.
Yeah, Dave Bautista is another good example too.
Absolutely,
of someone who just started. I mean, he started with Drax and all that stuff, obviously, in the MCU, but has taken on a lot more roles since then. Like, and is trying drama and is trying some. He's obviously got great comedic chops, but he's expanding and trying other things and action and stuff like that. So, but I think the difference is too, like The Rock is. He's a businessman, like he's an empire. I mean, it's deeper than the films, and I think like films for him are maybe not the same outlet as it is for other people, whereas like a film might be a creative outlet for someone who just has a passion for it. Like, I think a lot of it for The Rock is it's part of it's business, like movies are entertainment. It's like wrestling, it's business. And I think like maybe that can kind of show up in just how he's on set, is maybe it's not not the same way. It's not the same type of thing to him, maybe in some way.
Yeah.
Well, a couple weeks ago, I can't remember when, we talked about the live action Moana got pushed by Disney. And we were like, we don't know why. Maybe just because the animated sequel's coming out this year. And now it's kind of like, well, maybe there's more than one factor here. Because he can't throw his weight around like that at Disney the way he thinks he can at these other places. I mean, look how he tried it at DC or at Warner Brothers, and that didn't really work out either. So, House of Mouse, they'll whip your ass into shape.
It's funny you say that. When I heard this story was happening, I was like, oh no, because I didn't know I hadn't read the story yet, and I just heard there's an expose about The Rock. You guys posted in the chat, and I was like, oh no, what did he do? I was like, what? How canceled is he? It was like, it went through my head, and I started thinking, I was like,
you gone? And you're never coming back.
Yeah, exactly. Like, where you at? I was thinking, like, if he got like canceled for something terrible, like most of the universes I love are unaffected, and I think it's kind of because he tends to choose universes where he's trying to build his own thing or be a part of a universe where he can be a big player. And I think that he hasn't crossed that line where he steps into these big universes, except for Shazam, and like that, Maybe now that he's trying to get into these universes, he is hitting up against that sort of like, this movie is not just about you, buddy. And I know we had a lot of like Fast and the Furious beefs too with him and Vin Diesel, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who
Whose
is
ego
right and
is
wrong in
bigger?
this? Exactly. Those are
Rock
just two
or
big
Bob
egos.
Iger's?
I think
Yeah.
Vin Diesel has the same contract where he can't lose a fight, so I want to see The Rock and Vin Diesel in a movie have a fight, and like it's like,
Well, they do.
you know, it's like
they
what,
always
I mean,
end in a
what
draw.
happens here? It has to be a
They-
draw. You know?
They fight throughout all the Fast and Furious movies. The first like 2 or 3 that he's in, they're fighting, and it's like they just always end in
It's
a
like
draw.
Peter Griffin and the chicken.
Incoming fists that meet perfectly and create a shock.
Yeah.
That destroys the rest of everything around them.
They always have to end it with like, "We'll finish this later."
That is
Like-
exactly how it ends every time in the Fast and
Amazing.
Furious things.
Before we move on entirely, I did want to address a couple of things that got brought up. So Jay, I was glad that you addressed, Dave Bautista, and so like The Rock was not the first to do it. We had like Charles Bronson or even like Andre the Giant kind of made the turn from wrestler to actors, but he was arguably the most successful. And kind of the first out of the gate in that regard to really be regarded as an actor. But I think you look at both John Cena and Dave Bautista, and I would argue that both are more talented and have selected better roles for themselves and have established themselves as, in my opinion, fine actors. But then the other aspect of it is like, thinking of The Rock as this businessman. Matt, you've often cited the video essays of Patrick H. Willems,
was
and
about to
he
bring
did
this
the
up.
whole one about Ryan Reynolds and The Rock. Are like, are they actors or are they just ambassadors for a brand, and that brand is themselves? So, in this story, they mentioned it wasn't Ryan Reynolds firsthand, but it was an anecdote from an insider saying that on the set of Red Notice, Netflix's highest-grossing film to date, The Rock showed up like 5, 6, 7 hours late, and Ryan Reynolds was pissed, and they didn't speak to each other for a couple of years in between. And it's only because Red Notice 2 is happening that they finally, made that happen. So
Wow.
That movie's not even very good.
I couldn't get all the way through it. I turned it off.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, we do need to move on to our break, but before we do, check out our Patreon. If you haven't yet, patreon.com/multiverse newscast. We're on there. It's $4 a month to support the show. Basically $1 an episode. You're tossing us a little tip for the hard work we put in every week to bring you this show. And we appreciate all of our patrons over there. We really, really appreciate you. And we'll be right back with more Multiverse news. Welcome back to Multiverse News, and we're going to talk about our Spotify poll real quick. Should The Office, a continuation, connect to any past series? And if so, which ones? We have 20.8% of you said The American Office, 8.3% said the UK version, and 35% of you said both, and 35% of you said neither. I love how split this is. It's very interesting to me. Like, there are neither and both are the same percentage, and it almost is, if you add up the who thinks it should only connect to one or the other, that's another third.
Okay, now I know this is going to make me sound like a noob. I did watch all of The Office. Okay, I'll preface with this. Is it like confirmed that the British version and the American version take place in the same space, or is that just...
So you're not the noob, Jay. I am the noob because I'm the one that wrote this question, and one of our listeners, Sony Tetris, was quick to correct me. And yes, the American and the UK version of The Office are connected because Michael Scott and Ricky Gervais's David, not going to pull the last name, they met on an episode of the American version.
See, I saw that, but does he refer? Is it that character though, or is it just Ricky?
We don't
You
know
what I mean?
that. He doesn't say that, and he
Okay.
doesn't. He just says like, "I work in an office." It's very generic,
Okay.
so
Yeah,
it could
so-
go either way.
It's definitely alluded to they're in the same universe, but could
It's
be
not very specific
changed.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like Jim Carrey and the Finger Lakes. Very
Oh my
specific there.
god, I love that. Finger Lakes guy.
He's just the Scranton Strangler, is what they're trying to do.
Oh, man.
Oh, is that what that ended up being?
Oh, I
No.
don't know. I've
We
seen
never know.
theories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they've never answered, and I saw an interview with the whatever. Oh gosh, his name. The guy, the head writers of the show.
Greg
He's
Daniels?
like, knows the other one. The guy who went on to
BJ
do
Michael
Novak?
Schur.
BJ Novak?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure.
Michael Schur.
Michael Schur. That's the one. I saw an interview with him talking about it, and he was like, he said that all the Scranton Stringer stuff was after he left the show, but all of his discussions with the people at the show, they won't reveal if they ever had an answer to that question, and they won't reveal what it is if they had an answer, and Yeah, it was kind of.
I love it. It's like the Cheers, Norm's wife, Frasier. You know,
he did say in the interview at
Yes.
one point, apparently they ended up not going this way, but at one point they were going to make it. Somebody in the office was going to be definitively the Strangler, and I forget who he said.
It had to be Creed.
See,
No,
I feel
it
like it's
wasn't.
got to
No,
be
it was Toby.
Toby.
It was Toby. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So at one point it was going to be Toby, but they ended up clearing him at some point, I think. But
Yeah, he got strangled.
did he really? I don't remember.
Right? I'm right in that, right?
I don't
Haley, you've seen
remember.
Office
No.
more than me. No.
He doesn't
He
get
just
strangled.
he just got his neck bruised, right?
Oh, okay.
Oh man.
Oh,
Wasn't there-
Christ.
Yeah,
Well,
there was a
Toby-
scene where he got interviewed because he had gotten strangled by the Scranton Strangler or something.
Wow.
I feel like, or
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
I'm
that
just
could be
making this
a-
up, but I feel
I
like
think
that
you're
happened.
making it up.
There's people screaming right now into their podcast.
I
Well,
know.
people
I
are
feel
saying
like
in the
a
chat.
phony. I should know.
Jessica Mai says it's Toby for sure. Yeah, but anyway, he was going to say it was Toby, and they decided not to do that at all because they realized how dark the rewatch of the series would feel if you knew there was a murderer in the office. For sure, it's a funny thing to theorize about, but if they made it for sure, the whole time you'd be watching it going Toby's murdering
Okay,
people.
wait, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. He went to interview the Scranton Strangler because
That's
they
what
said
it
they
is, yes.
caught him, and so he went to interview him in jail for a book he was writing,
Yes.
and the Scranton Strangle strangled him, and
Oh.
he
They
and that was the
attempted to.
joke.
Yeah.
So I'm
That's
not
pretty great.
crazy.
No, you're not.
And,
I was like, there's a kernel of truth there, but I just can't remember what it is.
Okay,
It's a
yeah, it
deep
sounds
cut.
like he was. Sounds like he was
Anyway.
covering for himself. Sounds like he
That's what-
faked that. I
Yeah,
feel
he
like.
strangled himself.
Yeah, strangled himself in the jail just to see, it was him the whole time. Okay, we're going to get into the lightning round. This is where we try to get through as many stories as we can here. So I'm going to read the story, and someone's going to claim that topic with their name by buzzing in with their name, and then they are the only person who gets to comment on that story. And if you would like, you get one rebuttal per lightning round. Here we go. Challengers took the number one spot at the box office this weekend with $15 million opening weekend.
Haley. Challengers was awesome. So if you're into drama sports movies with a love triangle, go see it.
A lot of bow chicka bow bow.
There's actually not. Anyway,
It's more nah. Come on.
the soundtrack is a bop. What's interesting is the article from Variety about the box office was talking to Amazon MGM, which released Challengers, and they're kind of going into that Apple camper. We have so much money that movies in the theater is marketing for our streaming service, and that's truly what they're counting on. So I just think it's interesting to continue to point that out, that streamers are, if they have the capital of an Apple or an Amazon, that is still their tactic, which is I find it fascinating. And
Yeah, it's
Challengers
wild.
rules.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Disney released the trailer and official logline for Mufasa, the Lion King, which premieres December 20th.
Jay, I'm not gonna. I thought about doing the Circle of Life intro, but I was not ready for it, so I'm not gonna do that. So to me, this trailer was a teaser, so there wasn't a lot given away. I find it super derivative of the Lion King. Even a lot of the shots look very Lion King. It does seem to be a follow up, obviously, to the live action Lion King that Jon Favreau put together, which people have their opinions on. I still think the animals kind of have that uncanny valley a little bit. I liked The Jungle Book, which was another Jon Favreau production, which had the same sort of thing, but for some reason that was different than The Lion King. I don't know if I was comparing it to the animated version too much or whatever. All that to say, the trailer does show us at the movie kind of a look at it and an idea of it. It does come out on December 20th, which I think is really interesting. And to me, that's the big takeaway is they're aiming to be that Christmas movie. It's the same weekend as Sonic, which I think is interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them move, and I don't think it would be Mufasa. I think it would be Sonic that would move. But yeah, I think that makes sense. You're trying to get families to come see it. You're trying to make it a family experience, and it's got music from Lin-Manuel Miranda, which I think sometimes he's a little hit or miss, but and I don't know if I'm necessarily yes, that makes this movie all of a sudden more watchable. I'm surprised they didn't go with maybe a musician from Africa or something, something a little bit different. But still, there's a lot going on here. I think it's something to follow for sure. But I don't know if I'm fully convinced yet that it's something that I need to see, I guess, necessarily.
I have a tiny but. I find these hyper realistic animal CGI thingy dingies weird. The end. Thank you. I know I'm not the only one, so
you're definitely not the only one. Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
It freaks me out.
A set photo and comments from the actor himself on a podcast have confirmed Jeff Bridges is returning for Tron Ares.
Scotty, believe this was an inevitability. If they had any hopes of bringing in the like hardcore Tron audience, you have to have Jeff Bridges. He was there from the very beginning as Kevin Flynn, and if you know anything about the inner workings of Tron, his likeness has been co-opted by one of the main characters. So you kind of have to have him. And from what I've heard, the digital de-aging has made leaps and bounds since Tron Legacy, which I give a pass to because of that Daft Punk soundtrack. But I'm just really excited for this one. And Jared Leto is still the kind of like one part about it that's like, why is he got to be a part of this? But I'm still excited for it.
I'll use my rebuttal on this. I really was excited when I left the theater for from Tron Legacy. It was just cool that they did such a neat. I mentioned it earlier in the podcast how I like these kind of like much later sequels and like really giving the time in the universe to develop, and then you have this. And I just thought the whole world was interesting in these like emergent AIs, society, and all that stuff that they came up with in Tron Legacy. I just thought it was really, really cool. And then it's been 14 more years. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, I thought I just assumed it wasn't successful enough to get sequels, because I felt like it was clearly left off to be like, we're going to do another one. We're going to make this a trilogy, something. Oh, yeah. And then it didn't. And now they're doing it again. And I love that it's a contiguous universe, but I also feel like, I don't know, sort of like the ball was dropped, I guess. And I wish they'd just done another one, in whatever 2014 or something. But it's been a long, long time since Tron Legacy, and maybe we'll probably do a bingers on it or something, because I really enjoy the lore of the franchise so far.
Sounds good.
Netflix is close to finalizing a deal for a live-action Scooby-Doo series based on the beloved Hanna-Barbera cartoon, with exact plot details kept secret. Warner Brothers Television will produce the 1-hour drama with Josh Applebaum, Scott Rosenberg, and others attached as writers and executive producers.
Jay? I am shocked that this hasn't happened before, because it is a property that a lot of people like, and I know Haley's looking at me like it has happened before, but it hasn't happened before.
No, that's what I said yesterday.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm just stealing your take, I guess. But anyway, like this property does. The old episodes hold up so well. Yeah, I've been going back and like watching them with my kids and stuff, and they are like still funny and interesting, and like there's so much to work with there. And then you watch all of like the follow-ups, and they just don't capture it. Like they don't do the same thing. Like they lean too much on the you like this or that or this joke or this gag or whatever, and they get weird. Like the animated movie called Scoob that came out a couple of years ago, I watched that with my kids the other day. It's weird. Like it gets weird. Like it's not good. And like and so I think like, and then they did Velma, like Mindy Kaling did Velma, and people like hated that. And it was supposed to be like an adult sort of version of Scooby-Doo, which I think is such a good call. Like you could make a really interesting animated adult, like bloody, like kind of like true crime horror hour-long mystery that's funny and like has funny jokes and stuff and like leans on the characters. You could do that and it could be awesome, and they just like fumbled it like really bad. And so it's just weird how these characters have always had this like transition thing going on, but I think there's so much potential there for like a cool mystery horror thing that you could create that people would love. So all that to say, like I hope they get it right. Like I hope if something like this can be put together and it can lean on what made the first one great, but not just feel like it just hammers all of the jokes and it does its own thing. I think it could be cool. It's really intriguing, but there's just a lot that it has to do, and it's got to avoid a lot of pitfalls that a lot of other projects have fallen into over the years.
Okay, another tiny but.
Yeah.
Bring back the cast of Linda Cardellini, Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Matthew, what's his face?
Lillard.
And they're older, and it's Scooby-Doo older. I would watch that.
They were already like pretty much adults in those though. It's like not
How
like
long do Great Danes live?
Oh, the Great Dane. God,
Scotty.
ruined it.
No.
It's Scooby
Ruh-roh.
Junior. I hate. Okay, moving on.
Ruh-roh. Oh man. My tiny butt is the fact that it's a 1 hour drama makes me get like Riverdale vibes.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, so yeah, I don't know. But the people producing it haven't worked on that kind of stuff, it looks like. So I don't know. I don't know what the vibe of this is going to be. Deadpool and Wolverine director Sean Levy, while speaking to the Associated Press, the filmmaker likened watching films to homework, saying, "I was a good student in school. I'll do my homework as an adult, but I am definitely not looking to do homework when I go to the movies." The quote reaffirming that prior knowledge would not be an obligation for the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Matt, good, I think. I think that this is going all over the place, and I think a lot of people are like, but we want all the connections and the little Easter eggs. I think based on the trailers and stuff, we're getting all the connections and the Easter eggs we want. I think they're just saying, like, this is not a movie you have to be a deep, like, watching YouTube videos on every connection nerd to enjoy this movie. I think it's going to be a fun, enjoyable movie that you can know almost nothing about the MCU or the Deadpool movies or the X-Men Fox stuff and still enjoy it, but all the little references will still be nice for us extra people.
Scotty with a rebuttal. Like, I can't help but think of Endgame. And like, I've never had the experience. I was invested in the MCU fully by the time Endgame came out, but I've seen in retrospect there were people that have had the experience of like going and watching Endgame separated from everything else. They're like, yeah, I don't know anything that's going on here. So It's like, yeah, I feel that Deadpool and Wolverine kind of has the potential to really be that tentpole kind of like, you know, reclamation day for Marvel in a sense, but I think we do have to acknowledge that they're not quite at the heights that they were with Endgame. So you do have to, you know, make this accessible for a wide audience, and I think they're going to get a lot more diehards than they're expecting. So my hope is that this film is really going to do the best of both worlds. It'll be, you know, have all those references, have all the continuity and connectivity and the cameos, but then also be a serviceable character story that you may not even have to have seen the first two Deadpools to enjoy.
I'll tiny but to say too that I think like it's also got the unique position of the Fox stuff, and I think that's why he's saying this. It's like if it's just MCU, you don't really have to come out and say that, because the MCU movies are pretty good about not being super beholden. Like, you didn't need to see Miss Marvel to see the Marvels, you know, like you can kind of go see those movies. But the fact that like they're like, oh, Hugh Jackman's in it, and it's like Deadpool was in Fox, and like I think a lot of people, they're afraid of people being intimidated by like all the X-Men and like all that stuff too. So they're trying to just be like, listen, it's just a movie, just go see it. You don't have to watch a bunch of stuff to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Ralph Fiennes are set to star in the long-awaited sequel 28 years later, directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland. The film marks the return of the original team, with Cillian Murphy serving as executive producer, aiming to expand the franchise into a trilogy.
Scotty, all three are top tier actors. Jodie Comer in particular, she's kind of on the rise here. She was in Free Guy and then The Last Duel with struggling for names right now, Adam Driver and Matt Damon. And I thought she was really great in that film. So she's one of those names that slowly but surely I'm starting to recognize more and more and look forward to the work that she puts out. So yeah.
Julia Garner, known for her Emmy-winning role in Ozark, is set to star opposite Josh Brolin in the upcoming horror film Weapons from director Zach Kreger. Garner's rising star continues to shine as she lands major roles, including playing the Silver Surfer in Marvel's upcoming Fantastic Four.
Scotty, this is another one that I'm looking forward to. Zach Kreger, he got his start with The Whitest Kids You Know, so definitely, you know, comedy beginnings transitioning into horror. A pretty talented horror filmmaker, because his debut film was Barbarian, which came out in 2022. Really loved Barbarian, so I'm excited for his follow-up here. And the interesting thing here is that Pedro Pascal was once attached to this thing, and Josh Brolin took his role. So now Julia Garner will be starring alongside Josh Brolin in this one, and then she will go to star with Pedro Pascal in the Fantastic Four. So slowly but surely, she's putting another little feather in her cap there.
Independent distributor Vertical released a trailer for The Exorcism starring Russell Crowe as a troubled actor who begins to unravel while working on a supernatural horror film.
Scotty, it seems like Russell Crowe has an itch for the demon possession genre because he did The Pope's Exorcist a couple of years back. It might have been last year, and it actually did better than I expected it to. Never ended up catching it just because I don't know. There's so many of those kind of films out there these days. If I don't hear really strong word of mouth, I'm just not all that interested. And, that kind of is the case with this one as well.
Sony has moved Kraven the Hunter to the prime winter spot of December 13th, 2024, back from August 30th, 2024. Kraven steps into a date that was occupied by fellow Sony pick The Karate Kid, a crossover event movie starring Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan. Karate Kid now moves to May 30th, 2025.
Jay, that is, I think, a vote of confidence in Kraven the Hunter, or maybe it's just hey, we've had a lot of strikes and delays and stuff, but I don't know, man. I don't know if I'd be throwing this into your prime movie spot. I don't know. You just had Madam Web happen, and we all know what happened with that. So I don't know if there's a clamoring for the Sonyverse and the expansion of the Sonyverse. You got Venom 3, you got Kraven, so it's a big year for the Sonyverse, and so far not looking great. So I'll be interested to see, like, from a distance, like, what are the reviews like for this? Well, I mean, Aaron Taylor Johnson, like we talked about, he's supposed to be doing Bond. Like, we just talked about him 28 years later. He's got a lot of things coming up here they're gonna matter, and he'll be judged on. So we'll see.
Tiny Butt, I talked about this a little bit on the MCU cast, and my take was that I think they're trying to move further away from Madam Web. Like, give us a little more time to forget, because they want us to be more excited for the Sonyverse, and this puts it after the current release date for Venom: The Last Dance, which is October 25th. So I think if Venom can get excitement for the Sonyverse back even just a little, and right now it's bottomed out, maybe people will give Kraven a chance, and they didn't, whereas they wouldn't right now. But I just looked that up to make sure I was right about the release date for Venom. And my favorite thing is it says it's like Google, automatic. The release date is October 25th, 2024, and the picture is Tobey Maguire in the black suit, like looking like going to the dance at the bar, and I just think that's hilarious.
Thank you, AI.
Thank you, AI. I really appreciated that. It gave me a good laugh. In an IP rights deal with game company Hasbro, Sony has gained the exclusive TV and film rights to the board game Clue.
Haley! Oh, I love this. I would love to see a new Clue iteration, the one in the 80s with Tim Curry's classic, but I think that this is something that there's been enough time to do something new with it. I'm here for it.
Colonel Mustard in the study with the candlestick.
Oh man, what a fascinating film that is, and the fact that it was released. This isn't Tiny Butt to the story. This is just me talking about Clue. The fact that they released it with different endings depending on what theater you went to, like that is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of stuff I'm always wishing they would do now. Like, we've talked about it with, like, MCU. Like, what if they, in the Multiverse Saga, put different post-credit sequences at different theaters or something like that?
Oh,
like,
do it, you cowards. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
We're doing Monopoly. We're doing Clue. Like, what's next?
It's the board game universe.
Board game era.
I'm telling you, man. Catan.
Connect
all day.
Oh, my God.
Connect 4 is hilarious.
Jennifer Aniston is set to produce a reimagining of the iconic 1980 film 9 to 5, which originally starred Lily Tomlin, Dolly Parton, and Jane Fonda. Although rumors of a sequel with the original cast have circulated for years, the project seems to be a reboot or retelling of the original. Matt, I think it's a great idea. I think it's just a really cool idea to, like, examine the role of women in the workforce now and how it's changed, because it has changed, but there are still inequalities. And it's like, how do you know, there's just a whole different set of things that you could lampoon, but also and have really interesting moments about, not just lampoon. The movie's not just a comedy; it is a comedy, but it has poignant things in it too. And I think this is just ripe for a remake, honestly. And it doesn't mean you can't have those characters pop in a. I don't think a reboot or a sequel with those two characters is necessarily in order, but I think them being in this reboot as older characters would be awesome. And I think Jennifer Aniston's a great call for this. Like, her comedy movie chops over the last 10-15 years since Friends days have been really good. She's been in a lot of kind of supporting roles in a lot of good comedies, so I dig it.
I know I'm posing a question that somebody probably doesn't have an answer readily available, but I'm wondering, has she ever produced something that she didn't star in some fashion?
Yeah, she produced, I think, some of Adam Sandler's recent movies,
okay.
I'm pretty sure. I'd have to look up which ones, but I think I saw that while I was reading about this. There were a handful of movies that she had been, she has a production company that had been at the head of a few of those.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Sources tell Deadline that New Line is the favorite to land a project that is based on the biography The Chris Farley Show, with Paul Walter Hauser attached to play the legendary comedian Chris Farley in the biopic.
Haley, get your tissues ready for that one, because that'll be a sad film movie.
It's great casting. Great casting, too.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
and
Scotty,
Josh Gad was going to direct it.
Oh,
wow.
Or produce it. So
Interesting.
tiny, but Mike Feist, who just appeared in Challengers, is apparently rumored to be the favorite for David Spade. And if you know anything about Chris Farley's history, he had a very close friendship with David Spade. Yeah.
Cute. Love it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Paramount Global CEO Bob Bakish departed the company after 8 years in the position and nearly 3 decades with the company, all in the midst of a potential merger with Skydance.
Jay, this is going to be kind of a wait and see thing. We've talked for a while about Paramount's potentially merging with another company or being bought out, and it seems like that becomes more of a possibility by the day. They just had an earnings call literally today, and they have seemingly received over the weekend their Skydance has presented their biggest and final offer to essentially buy Paramount. So I think by the time we get together next week, maybe there'll be a lot more news about this, but it's definitely something to follow. It shouldn't be a surprise that Paramount has kind of been up for bid for a while, but these kind of movements usually are smoke with fire in this type of industry.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that is our news for the week. You guys, thanks for joining us. We always have a blast bringing you guys the news and having a little chat about it. Let's go. If you find us on the socials, Multiverse Newscast at most of the socials, and MV Newscast on Twitter. So find us everywhere. And let's go around and tell the people where they can find you, specifically online, person on the panel. Haley Hobbs.
My first plug is for Free Comic Book Day, which is this Saturday, May 4th. If that is your thing, check out your local comic book store. They'll be doing all kinds of stuff because it's Free Comic Book Day, and it's May the 4th, so it's a big Star Wars holiday. So super fun day if that is stuff you're into. And then, like I said, we did a Secret Wars primer about the Runaways on Source Pages, and I also appeared on a show called Now This Is Lit, which is run by Meg Mondum. She reviews Star Wars books, and she works for Star Wars Insider, and we talked about Crimson Climb by E.K. Johnston, so give that a listen.
Sweet. And Jay Sisson.
Yeah, I'm on Commute the Podcast weekly. We don't have a new episode this week, but we'll be back next week where you can learn a few interesting things on your way to work for about 20 minutes. And then Matt and Scotty and I wrapped up our coverage of Fallout on Prime on Pandavision. And so if you are thinking about watching Fallout, it is, I think, the second most streamed Amazon show in history, right behind the Rings of Power. So it is going off right now. People are getting into Fallout, or they're starting it. and we three loved it and can't recommend it enough. So if you're thinking about watching it, or if you have watched it, we have covered all of the episodes of Fallout over on Pandavision.
Absolutely. And not only is it just a great show you enjoyed, but it's like the perfect kind of show I like covering on Pandavision. Like just all the ethical stuff, all the weird stuff to theorize about and predict and try to figure out, and mysteries. It's just so much fun. Great show. It was a really fun thing to cover with you guys. And J. Scotty St. Clair.
Yeah, you can check me out on Animation Deliberation, the podcast that takes action animation and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. And we are also in the midst of our Planet of the Apes coverage on Bingers Assemble. So unless you're one of those like Haley, where the photorealistic, highly realistic animal renders bug you, come check us out over there. I've got myself, Matthew Carroll, Bill Bria, and my buddy David Flores, and we're having a really good time covering those movies in preparation for Kingdom, which will be hitting theaters soon. So wherever you get your
Can
podcast.
teach those apes to ride horses, then I can do anything.
There's your motivation for the day.
Definitely inspiring.
I'm more inspired by that than any of the Rock's posts. I mean, where he's talking about
all props to Trevor Slattery.
All right. Well, and I'm Matthew Carroll. I'm on all the places. StraightUpPanda.com. You can find lots of podcasts there, and I'm on a lot of them. And we'll be back soon, guys, on Multiverse News with more news. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.
Hey, thanks for listening to Multiverse News, or watching it, or whatever you're doing. You know, eyeballs or ear holes, whichever thing. We do this show every week, and we appreciate you listening. StrandedPanda.com is where you can find all of our podcasts. And thank you for listening. Check us out wherever you get podcasts. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the little bell icon, whatever you have on whatever service you're doing. Rate us, like us. We're really thirsty. That's what I'm saying.